And good afternoon or morning and high noon right here in Texas, Texas time. Today we've got Water Wars, Cattle Battle, and the Whiskey Rebellion right here on RLMradio.xyz. I am VNE, Vinny at RLM Radio, connecting voices, broadcasting what matters worldwide, and taking a ponder gander, and we're going to try to think and reason and raise some expectations, perhaps, through some uh, thought-provoking episode today. And so our resident chatter, Hans, he calls himself J. Dread. He says a gander is a goose in a pond is where aquatic birds like to swim. And he says, so Vinny is going to talk about a goose in a pond and wonders if I might propose cooking the goose for Mother's Day. Not a bad correlation, Hans, but and it's not a bad idea. But no, we're going in a little different directions. We're going to take stock in what you got. You know this, that you can't get lard unless you boil the hog. And remember, never kick a fresh turd on a hot day. There's taking a pond or gander or sorting through it. That's some things they might say in Texas. And always remember, nothing is ever as easy as picking up a turd by the clean end. And that comes from the paraphrase plagiars, and that might be me. So Julieta asks, ¿Por qué chingados dijiste? To which I reply, la lengua está hecha en chicharrones. And you got to wash that down if you like chicharrones. Whiskey is for drinking and water's for fighting over. The Battle of Bunkerville. I'm going to take this up, and I'm going to start with, and this is in response to Don Quixote, very clever, Cervantes Mounts on Twitter. And I'm going to take up this issue with the Battle of Bunkerville. And I'm going to start to say that the farm was bought back in the 40s or 50s, and the claim itself goes back through ancestral lineage on the land in that region back into the latter 1800s. And we're talking about the water rights and grazing rights, and I'm told that they are held in deed or title at the Clark County records in the courthouse there. So we'll try to come back around there and get into some of that conversation over there on the Twitter sphere. And thank you, Cervantes Mount. Don Quixote. That's so clever. He says to me that his challenge to me is to access and verify that the Bundy claims to the water, property, or grazing rights on the public land adjacent to their 160 acres. And he says they can't demonstrate that continuous use and beneficial use starting in 1877. Ryan Bundy, he's addressed all this in a YouTube video. So as I was putting everything together, I didn't get quite over there to gather that up, but I'll look to do that and add that into the show notes. If you come back over to the reallibertymedia.com page, the blogcaster page, Ponder Gander, and that'd be me, V&E. So here's somebody knocking at my door over there at Real Liberty Media, and I'll come back over in just a minute. So Ponder Gander and Mark Twain, behind the woodshed, that's water in the West. Fresh water is an essential resource, and the battles over water rights in the western region of the United States can be bruising. Link with that will be included. So water wars, there's more to see. Nor shapes of men, nor beasts we keen, the ice was all between. Water, water, everywhere, nor any drop to drink. The noun keen means range of vision or comprehension. If quantum mechanics is beyond your keen, you don't understand it. And it's, hey, Hans probably understands this. He's a genius, he tells us. As if you don't understand it, or is it beyond your scope of knowledge? Keen is rarely used today outside the phrase beyond one's keen. That's a keen dictionary definition at vocabulary.com. That damn desert. The only place you can drown, freeze to death, or die of thirst all in the same day. Deserts cover about a fifth of the Earth's surface and occur where rainfall is less than 50 centimeters a year. That's near 20 inches for us Americans. Although most deserts, such as the Sahara of North Africa and the deserts of the Southwest, U.S., Mexico, and Australia occur at low latitudes. Another kind of desert, cold deserts, occur in the basin and range area of Utah and Nevada and in parts of Western Asia. Most deserts have a considerable amount of specialized vegetation as well as specialized vertebrate and invertebrate animals. Soils often have abundant nutrients because they need only water to become very productive and have little or no organic matter. Disturbances are common in the form of occasional fires or cold weather and sudden, infrequent, but intense rains that cause flooding. Thank you, Berkeley, EDU. Beef ain't always what's for dinner, and water's not just for war or washing, nor a long, tall drink of water. The term exists in two forms, long drink of water and tall drink of water. Most dictionaries do not have the expression, and no dictionary I checked has any speculation about the etymology of the term. The Historical Dictionary of American Slang defines the term as a tall man and has a first citation in 1936. But with minimal effort, I've been able, not me, but the guy I'm reading from, has been able to antedate it possibly to 1904, though it's not a strict use of it in metaphor. 1904, in the Daily Huron in South Dakota, makes a big hit from page 7 from page 3. Then there is a baby Patty who's not much longer, or larger that is, than a long drink of water, and who is a marvel for a child. The earliest citation I have is this, 1924 Times, London, England. The speaker defied, sorry about that. The speaker defied on May 10th, on page 12, Mr. Kirkwood addressed his reproof to Lord Winterton, who, along with his colleagues, had protested against the defiance of the speaker's rulings. Ye are not treating with Indians, he says. Ye belong drinks of water, he shouted immediately, and the speaker removed the member from the member for Dunbarton. Another newspaper quoted the same thing, indicates that the speaker, Kirkwood, is a Scottish Labour Party member, as also indicated by the yeehaw. There's nothing about the expression in the Dictionary of Scots Language, and that was posted by Mo Nichols at 5:20 p.m. on August 14th of 2006. That comes from WordCraft Info Pop. Now this road is as rocky as the day is long on a hot summer's day. We'll take a few words out of and bring this water back in and on the river, and from a YouTube video included in this broadcaster. Well, I got me a gal in Pekin. She's a good old gal, okay? Oh, she's sitting there waiting by a window fan on a long, hot summer's day. For every day I'm working on the Illinois River, get a half day off with pay. An old tote picking up barges on a long, hot summer day. Well, last night we had pork for supper, and tomorrow it'll be chicken, consomme, and a fruit jar full of iced tea on a long, hot summer day. Well, I've got me a glass of tea right over here. And speaking of which, we've got the Whiskey Rebellion. It's the Battle of the Long Islands iced tea. And it is insurrection in the South again. Fight night, boy. I hear that dinging over, but I'm not coming to look just yet. I'll be back in the chat in a bit. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, Kingsport, Tennessee. That's my ancestral homeland versus New York. Get it right. Kingsport officials sent a letter to the organization Hudson's on the Mile in New York to accept this challenge, and it ended with a bless y'all's heart. And proud to say they even spelled y'all right. Okay, so talking back about my ancestral homeland, first Easleys went there in 1780. And I've met one of the descendants of my ancestors there this last year. About this time, I was back there and cleaned up some of the cemeteries and one had never been attended in a very, very long time. So I cut out a bunch of trees. I slept out there at the footstones or headstones of the graves out there, my ancestors, and did a deed. So based on my suggestion, the listing for Vincent Easley and Thomas Easley cemeteries have been added to the map. And you'll see some headstones there, and get over to the Google Maps there. You'll find it. I'm officially a guide, but I still have more to add, and I might need to stop doing new stuff for a while just to catch up. And you can see Scott Tent. I'll tell you what I'll do. Well, I just grab that up right there and bring it over to the chat and see who's ringing my bell, and we'll take a pause and come back to where I'm at here. Okay, that was sweet tea. Yes, Grimner, it is sweet tea. Somebody's killing ducks over here. We're going to hit this cancel and make it all come together. There you go. So if you want to take a look. And somebody else said something, so let me back up in this chat just a little bit. It's not a message. And it was before. There he is. Hans Dredd, perfect. I hope you caught your the introduction there, and we talked about you. Hey, Circle showed up. All right, let me come back over here to my thing that's I put all together here. Some of the ponder Gander I am, and some of the paraphrased plagiarists. Thanks, Circle. So listen, we are worldwide. Circle's over in Denmark, way over yonder, across the mighty seas, the big old pond. All right, where am I at? Here I am. Yeah, certainly. So easily 10 Sims, I call it in Kingsport. Hashtag that. Getting the goods. Happiness is sought by some at the bottom of a bottle. Others deem the dream to be in dry goods and proud to pay in a pound of flesh. I wrote that. To please the flesh, 1,000 arts contend, the miser heaps of gold. By toll acquired, promote no other end. Chestofbooks.com, the rest of that, and you'll find the link in the broadcaster. So we're at the cattle rattle, and next week I have author Mike Stickler. He's a stickler in a strict land. I typoed his name one time, and I come back and cleaned it up real nice with that. So we'll be coming to air live next Friday, May the 18th at 12 p.m. noon Central. It's a time and location right here at reallibertymedia.com, rlmradio.xyz. We're going to set the record straight about Cliven Bundy, who he really is and how his stand makes a difference to every American. You have read the headlines, and you've heard me talking about it for some time. Now get the real story. And then we're going to think and reason, and we're going to raise expectations through another thought-provoking episode here at the reallibertymedia.com show page. Ponder Gander. That's me, Vincent Easley II, reporting, standing in the gap, connecting voices, broadcasting what matters worldwide. So I'm going to finish this next little piece up, and then I'll pop back to chat. And then I'm going to have to go over and gather over here on Twitter and see if I can tie some of this together, and got some other stuff to do. But before I get to that, let's let me tell you a little bit about Mike Stickler. Mike's an author, a radio show host, and an ex-felon. He's a highly sought-after motivational speaker. He's got some best-selling books, A Journey to Generosity, and let's see. He's also is the publisher of Generous Living magazine and writes for the Christian Post, a Generous Life column. MikeStickler.net. In the shocking yet true story is told to the author with twists and turns, highs, lows, and intrigue. It explores the common sense of the life of one man, his devoted family, and fellow patriots, whose response to government overreach parallels the lives of the founding fathers of this great experiment known as this here United States of America. It's a story not yet finished in its telling. It's a story every family should read and declare in their own voice. It's a story you must decide for yourself. Is Cliven Bundy an American terrorist or an American patriot? Many call him a hero. Mike, I think there's a problem with this link here, this website, clivenbundy.net. But let's see here. Let me grab. I got a stack of cards up here with a few people to mention, and among them, of course, the top list is Mike Stickler, and you can find him at mstickler at. What that's the A with the circle around it. This my mstickler at the Vision Group .ltd. I'm sorry, the Vision Group Ltd.com. The Vision Group Ltd.com. Put Mike or put M Stickler at before that and find out where he's at. Right there. We are going to be coming together next week and talk about the Battle of Bunkerville, as it was the name was known upon it. About the book, Domestic Terrorist or American Patriot. Cliven Bundy, the federal government treats him as a domestic terrorist. I got had me a little sticker on there that says, "Hello, my name is domestic terrorist." And that was out there. The media characterizes him as a gun-toting militia wacko. The Bundy name is celebrated by ranchers and farmers throughout the West, but the same name has become an anathema to those ensconced in Washington. Those who work to arrest the oncoming wild. Let me try that again. Washington. Those who work to arrest the oncoming wildlife of one more time, wildfire of honest examination of the long-held federal assertion of land ownership and management, irrespective of the citizens' constitutional rights and guarantees across the West and the vast agricultural section, one that feeds the world. With this book, Cliven Bundy tells his story for the first time to author Michael Stickler while behind the razor wire fences of federal lockup. Stickler spent over 60 days documenting Bundy's side of the conflict that led over 200 federal agents. They were in full tactical gear, armed for civil war, to seize, sell, and destroy his cattle, acting well beyond their judiciary warrant. The standoff made international news, made me Forrest Gump famous too, by the way, created the rally cry, "No, hell no," that brought thousands of Americans from across the country to the Bundy Ranch in April of 2014. I was there. Additionally, Cliven gives a personal account of his life lost and the continued cost that the Bundy 19 endures as they continue to sacrifice their livelihoods and freedom. The Bundy 19 were those charged in that standoff. And the standoff was by the feds and not by the American people. The author describes the intense hardships the Bundy 19, 18 others charged with federal crimes, along with Cliven, experience from oppression and dangers that continues in the government's private contract prison in which they are held. From here, Cliven shares his personal inner fears and hopes for the future. It's a burden that weighs heavy on Cliven's heart. That's from the back cover. Now, I'll roll out here where I've got life is not entropic, yet tends towards disorder without applied energy. That's from a text I received in my response to infinitive and beyond. There are statements made at stopping points. Just from Twitter I posted. The things one has to put up with. And that's a ponder gander along life's highway and me, Vinny, I. So while I'm on the subject, it's between you and me and not you and I. As poor as my grammar is, boy, this seems to push a button for me. Everybody, you hear it on TV, they say it wrong all the time, so everybody supposes it's right. I believe I missed something here with Hal Anthony. Oh, I did read that, didn't I? Sure, back here, I think. So Hal Anthony, Behind the Woodshed. There it is. A Ponder Gander and Mark Twain I was talking about the fresh water and being an essential resource. Hal Anthony has tried to send his lessons over to some folks along the way, from the Sugar Pine Mine to up there at the Malheur Refuge, the Bundy Ranch. And looking back, and I've mentioned this sometime back, and looking back at the day of the standoff, as it's called, in the words that Hal Anthony had to say, so much could have been avoided, so much, and on up to Malheur. There's been a lot of missteps along the way, hasn't there? Loss of life. Lavoy Finicum was murdered. As his one of the conspirators against him will be on trial July the 24th, I believe. So I'm looking to head on home to Arkansas here in a couple of weeks, and then I got a little bit to do there, and perhaps a river run. I think maybe the water will be running right to float the Little Red and take some time at doing it. Spend a little time out there. So I'm waiting for this to unfreeze. Some I wanted to pick up over here off the Facebook. Yeah, that's back there to the donkey Otay. Very clever. Here it is. I spent a lot of time in Bunkerville at the Bundy Ranch in 2014, and since there's there is plenty I would agree with, and some contentions as well. Nonetheless, I believe peace does come in being settled by law. There was lawless on both sides, and my recent involvement has been to stand as a witness and to make a record for truth. And this does leave me in an unpopular position with some. And to this, I really can't care. I kind of do, but I guess I shouldn't, but maybe I should. Anyways, there's a right and wrong in this world, and that always is not necessarily a line that is crossed, but it is a direction to proceed. We've made a lot of missteps. I say we as that as a collective, and I would have some contention from Captain Carl. He's in court today. He went yesterday. His motion for dismissal was refused. Thank you, Sky Reeve. And actually, I just figured out what that meant here about 3 weeks ago. And that comes from the Old English of the Shire and the Reeve, and where we get the word sheriff. So I guess I'd call myself the appointed poot liaison to the Fogbo, and that's my interactionary feller over there. Yeah, I've been getting quite a bit of interaction on the Twitter sphere and Mike Stickler came in, and I've been challenged, and I'm not sure I have resources enough to find these deeds and titles in the courtroom. I intend to go back and find that video with Ryan Bundy and listen through to that and see if I can't come up with the wheres and whys and what fors. So let me pop back over here to the chat room just in time. That's me, Java Doctor, Sheriff Vinny. I was sheriff out in Riverside, self-appointed. Well, I was the only one there to vote. And so I took it upon myself to take up the duties as a peace officer. Another thing I have yet to do and add to Google Maps. I got a lot of notes. I spent some time out there, 11 days the first time, and I went back for a period of 28 days, so near on to 40 days in the desert, in Riverside, along the Virgin River, where the cattle call home. So I up in Mesquite, some miles away, 8 or 10, couple of the ladies there that I spoke with and learned a lot more of the history. So I have my notes and some pictures to add to Google Maps, and also need to go back to the website here and collect up on that information and bring it together. Like I said, maybe I need to stop doing stuff for a while where I can get caught up. So Elsbeth, she's the museum coordinator. Thank you. And that's Mesquite, Nevada City, Mesquite, Nevada, www.mesquite, mesquitenv.gov. Facebook is Mesquite, Nevada, or I'm sorry, Mesquite NV Museum. And very interesting, incredible amount of history these women knew. A book there that I was able to find out. Well, I'll tell you a little bit here about Riverside and Grimner. He says, I think I'm the new sheriff in town. Where's my toothpick at? Oh, crabapple calls me Forrest Dump. The doctor says Forrest Hemp. I like that better. And did somebody say Forrest DeKelly? Well, no, Ken O'Keefe. Ha. Judge Dredd says his Grams uses the word all the time. Keen, that is, going back to, is based on the Middle German word Kenntnis, which means knowledge and understanding. Later in the Middle English, it could be shortened to keen. It is a noun. Well, Grim says the last link, the Scott's tense. That's a picture. So I guess it got truncated, maybe. Thank you, Circle. The goosey pondering. Well, that'll be all right. We'll get that fixed. It's just a picture. And let me roll back down to the bottom. And then we'll talk about Riverside. Hans Dredd. Jay Dredd, he calls himself. We call him Hans, lovingly so. One of our resident chatters. So he says, I'm the Reeve of the Shire, and with this happen to be the Shire of Nottingham. Nope. Although my family did come through England into Tennessee, back over in actually started in Virginia in 1686 it was, I believe, and on to Kingsport. So there's a lot of history there. See, I've grabbed up the wrong thing here. On to, where was I? Riverside. Yeah, that's right. Over there on the Virgin River. The sheriff, right? Long history. The buildings there, they're called the ghost town. And the man that come along some years later, he kind of did that to strike up an interest that people would come along. But if you search it out on Google Maps, you're not finding a lot of information. But I'm going to be adding to that as a historian. So Riverside, the motel there, or motor hotel, was built back around 1920 something. It was a motor hotel. Back during the World War II, and they're shooting movies up there in Utah and all that beautiful places out there. People like John Wayne stayed there. That's what Clive and Bundy told me, and I have no reason to doubt it. Find out later on from the ladies up there at the Mesquite Museum that they could confirm that, but didn't say that wasn't necessarily true. It did tell me about Beaver Dam up there, a little strip of Arizona up close to the Virgin River Gorge, that folks like Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. and other Las Vegas acts there would come out and rent the whole town out and shut it down, bring out the party girls, the show girls, and have a rip-roaring old time. But I'll still make the claim that I slept where John Wayne slept. Sure enough. Now, what all happened out there? Lots and lots of stuff. What a mighty history that would be. The Mormon Trail connected up. It came along more of a corridor. The Spanish Trail was really a corridor, and it was like a mule trail, and it shifted according to time of the year and the weather and conditions. Grimner says having a beaver dam will make sure that the river remains a virgin. Actually, on the map, that was the surveyors got the somehow switched around the Muddy River and the Virgin River, so the name should have been changed. It should have been the Muddy River. It's not really muddy; it's sandy. Now, the Muddy River, which is supposed to be the Virgin River, is actually muddy, and maybe that comes from the confusion. But the headwaters, it comes out of the ground in Warm Springs at, I think, about 76 degrees in and it's, I think, all fenced off now. You know how the West is being stolen and seized. Where am I at? Let's think here. Let me go ahead and just give out a shout out. Ron Miller, he was at the Bundys here a day or so ago, and he's back. He's writing a book. I look forward to that coming out. Ron Miller, www.ronmillerbooks.com, and rgmiller59@gmail.com if you'd like to find him on there. He's Southern Fiction, available through Antebellum Press on Amazon.com, BarnesandNobles.com, and Apple.com. Ron Miller has written a small novel that will draw you into a simpler time before suddenly shifting expectations of story towards a darker study of rural Tennessee at a moment when the country was poised on the brink of post-war recovery. It is a stark reminder of where evil resides and how human compassion and love will in the end triumph. It's a novel to be read if you're willing to look at life as a whole cloth. Jack Riggs, author of When the Finch Rises and The Fireman's Wife. A couple of books that the old boy right there, and his recommendation. So we've talked about Mike Stickler, another fellow, Brian Hyde. He was the main representation there for the Bundys during the trial. Libertas Institute. He's got a blogcaster going, and again, you can find that Libertas Institute. There's some more. I don't have it in front of me, but it runs on YouTube and a website. You can find it for a search. Anyways, Brian Hyde, good guy. Shot a couple of his videos for him. And let's see. Let's go on back over here to the Twitter sphere. Let's see here if we can take up here with Don Quixote, and Cervantes Mount. Can we talk, Vinny? RLM Radio. My challenge to you is, where's it at? To use your access to verify the Bundys' claim to water, property, or grazing rights on the public land adjacent to their 160 acres. They will not and cannot demonstrate continuous beneficial use starting in 1877. That's what he says. I know Cliven and Ryan both said that it is on record. And Mike Stickler comes in, and he says, Vincent, there's a lot of wisdom here. Why so many don't understand is you can be open, truthful, and observe without taking sides. This is true for the mainstream media, much of the public. It's good journalism. Barks at cats. Meow says, good read, Vinny. Really want to see more of what you find out on this. So this is going to take make a project here, and with all the stuff that I've got gathered, it is a part of what I've yet to do and need to do and have to work on. Don Quixote. I laugh every time. So clever, and I won't call these guys trolls anymore. They're anonymous. Hey, I'm non-anonymous so that you can be. He says, what I'll find out is that Cliven has 11 applications filed after his grazing permit expired in 93. None of these claims have been adjudicated by the Nevada Water Examiner. So here we get into some convolution and some that I don't understand. And that, so Cliven fired the BLM as management for running his cattle. And so it kind of says, no, I don't need your help going out of business. Ranching's hard enough. That's kind of a little bit of a paraphrasing of what Clive Bundy may have said, but something to that like. Anyway, so we start looking at the rights that are owned, these rights of ownership to title of grazing fees and the water rights. So this is something he owns. It's a multi-use on the land, the public land, and the public domain that's involved in this is, that what this has or has supposed to been disposed of by Congress to the state. And Brian Bundy's running for governor on this platform. Now, I don't think he has a lot of chance of winning, of course, not having been a part of the Good Old Boy network. I'll be over. I hear you dinging in the chat. I'll come back in a minute. But at least he'll have a platform, and we'll be able to discuss some of these issues. But I'm going to tell you this. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he did win the governorship at all. I do see the end of Providence has been upon them this whole way, and to barks at cats. I say I will do my best to respond to this. A lot of y'all ain't going to want to take 2 hours or 30 minutes even to listen to a lot. I do talking typos, so deal with that. Okay, so Grumner's talking about me producing on the show. So somebody was asking something. Good point, Judge Dredd. Avoid the windmills on property and you'll be okay. Let me back up to see what y'all is talking about. Well, I guess I don't know. Sure. Oh, it's JJ. I see. JJ, he plays a little music. He's from Ireland. Old chap from yonder. Yeah. Howdy do, JJ. Yes. All right, back over here. Let me continue in this thread from the Twitter sphere. Will. Oh, Scotland. Thank you. Yeah. We was just talking about you bloody Scots. Reminds me of a story. Why don't I tell it? Since I'm reminded of it. Friend of my brother's, he's or was a cab driver, and I was going to say here in Vegas, but they're in Vegas. We're not in Vegas anymore. So for some reason, Sean Connery, his limo didn't happen to show any. Oh man, snitch, Grumner. It was an honest mistake. But anyway, so oh boy, he talks like Rocky. He kind of talks like this, and so he picks up Sean Connery and he really takes him a little wet out of the way or something. And Sean Connery says, "I believe you're long rottenness, sonny." And oh boy says, well, I thought you're a gentleman and I'd like to get your bed started on the English cup. And Sean Connery says, we're not fucking British, we're bloody Scots. And that's a true story. Sure enough. Okay, JJ, from Scotland. Hey, the Irish and the Scots have a lot in common anyways. They've all been kicked in the arse by the English on several occasions, but let's get back over here. Antonio Castellan in Las Vegas, Channel 3 news reporter. How you doing? Back to Don Quixote. In the book, and that is responding to Mike Stickler. Do you have a successive list of descendants from Abraham to Cliven that used his 11 Bunkerville and Gold Butte claims? Nevada law stipulates that 5 years is the maximum interruption allowable. Yes, that is true, and I think part of the reason why that Battle of Bunkerville was so prolonged and given some 20 years of leaving off between the litigation. So we've not seen the last of that. I'm expecting they'll make another roundup of cattle sometime in the fall, perhaps. Mama Bear, I think and hope, is going to make it in here and at the next hour. Terry Lionel, and we're going to talk about some of this. She's accredited. She's done some study on this. I'm not sure if she shared over a link or not, but here maybe in about last 5 minutes or something, I'll jump off for a minute, hand the reins, and then for this this rodeo show over to Gander, and I'll call her and see that she can make it in. So anyways, also here we've got some folks of Chile and Sal the Grandma and Marilyn Montgomery. They like that whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting over. Sure enough. And Cherry Wilson. Oh, those dreaded words. Stop resisting. Do resist, I say. Crimes of the state. You know what? Let's see if I can get over here and get a hold of some of this stuff. This computer's so slow. Well, if it'll unstick, I'll be able to scroll and pick up a few of these. It ain't moving. That's stupid Facebook. Well, I'll just go back to Twitter. Okay. So I'll probably find it along here. Meet Mike, author Clive and Bundy, right? He's going to be along here next week. So Duziak, investigate whether continuous beneficial use entitles you to do whatever the hell you want. Pro tip, he says, it don't. I'll give you a lot, Duziak. There we go. Well, won't we ask about that? Do whatever the hell you want? That's not a true statement. Pro tip. Hey, buddy. Multiple use. Again, Clive and Bundy's got the right to graze the cows out there. And we're going to get up in here as we scroll on up and talk about this supposed harm to the tortoise by the poor old lonely cow. On up. Get a copy here. CliveandBundy.net. Mike, that link is not working. That's to read Clive inside of the story. I've got his book right here in front of me. Sure enough. And Don Quixote says can like that investigate whether continual beneficial use entitles you. And Don Quixote says not a chance in hell he's going to pay for your jailhouse propaganda. You merely Cliven's words without fact-checking his claims and calls them lazy. Lazy. Rachel 42, how'd he do? He likes whiskey for drinking. And Mike Stickler replying, how would you know that without reading the book? Before you draw a conclusion, you really should get the whole story. Otherwise, your views remains hypothetical. Well, Don Quixote, he says way ahead of you, cowboy. Yeehaw. If you believe Cliven's claims about water grazing and property rights on public lands adjacent to his 160 acres in Europe, just a lady stenographer and later corrects that lady to lazy. And that's a link he shared is Bundy Truth. Welcome to Bundy Truth. Read the Bundy narrative below for an overview. We've got a series coming out here in 4 days called Bundyville, Pure Propaganda, License, Innuendo. I'll be looking forward to following that along just from, I determined that just from their preview. So lazy's not a lady, says Don Quixote. And Mike Stickler says you may not understand this concept, but I'll try to explain it to you. As a biographer, my job is to tell Clive and Bundy's life story from his point of view and not judge it. Wrap your head around that last part. What I find interesting about y'all so-called Bundy truthers of none of you ever met the man. But you have come to a conclusion about him. It's actually sad you spend so much time rallying against him. Hashtag get a life. Yeah, I've spent a lot of months here interacting with these folks that I don't call trolls any longer. Trying to wrap my head around why. Don Quixote says a biographer that repeats lies is a propagandist, that the truth is discernible without personal introductions. Mike says, how do you know you never read the book? Hard to get past your hurt. I like to call it butt hurt, whether it be a poot or a patty, and anger to see another. Past your butt hurt and anger to see another side, isn't it? We got some likes. We got a bunch of people involved here. Mandy MS25, American Gun Network, Try Success Now, LLC. Oh, they followed me. Try success, or you got to buy to try it? That's what I got to know. Don Quixote says, I've listened to your public comments repeating Cliven's lies. I don't have any need to read your book. He's a domestic terrorist, and Sheep Tramp says it's propaganda if you do it for money. Thought that was a prostitute. Maybe it's a prostitute. What the? It's one of those. And Don Quixote like that. Now, Mike Stickler. He's a Reno businessman. He was in prison with Clive, and he was found guilty of embezzling faith-based funds, USAtoday.com. And that was an old article that Don Quixote pulled up. Find Mike Stickler at Bundy Strong, and Mike himself is at Life in Red States. Mike Stickler replies, apparently not for the intellectually dishonest. It's real basic. First, you exhaustively get all the data, including testimony, and then come to a conclusion. Not draw a conclusion, then find evidence and support. That is being intellectually dishonest. Boy, I got to agree with that. Lazy again, not a lady. If you are unaware of data corroborating Cliven's claims to public lands, then let's see it. Bundys refused to cough it up, says, again, Don Quixote. So Mike says, now you're getting it. I was tried by my peers, and all the evidence was weighed, and they came to a conclusion. So that's the justice system. That ought to be good enough to get a White House job, says Kilgore Trout, AKL Elmer, PhD, Elmer Putt. These people are so clever in their names. All in the book, all in the trial, where the conclusion was drawn. Mike Stickler. A lot of people suppose that the Bundys got off. They were acquitted, found guilty. That's not true. It was Judge Gloria Navarro. She had no choice when the Wooten letter was revealed, the whistleblower, and exposing all the crimes of these agent provocateurs, FBI guys, and the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service, small army, 200 and I don't know, 200 and some odd men out there. I counted 180 vehicles as they evacuated after they were so scared and had to hunker down there in 2014. That was on April the 14th. Bullshit, Don Quixote. That data would be on file in Clark County or the State House if it existed. It doesn't, he says. Bundys are liars, illegally stealing public resources. And Mike, he's had enough for one day. And he said, no ring. I think it was no ring in his nose. Moving on, nice chatting with you. And then says again, I wanted to say thank you at Cervantes Mount, Don Quixote. As the result of our little chat today, I was booked on another national radio show. Hey, baby, we're worldwide. And we're going to talk about Clive and Bundy and the Bundy trial. Much appreciated. Facts matter. Yeah, what matters is worldwide. In fact, and indeed. Barks at Cat says, I like seeing half a conversation. Mikey and I tangled a while ago. Seems he doesn't like dissenting opinions and blocks easily. That's right. I did say in 3 syllables, but easily. It does count. People mispronounce my name sometimes. So, hey, I'll take the credit. Thanks, Barks at Cats. There's Tara Stomp. Opportunist, she says, fits as well. And DDMC retweeted this reply. A biographer that repeats lies is a propagandist. Okay, Don Quixote says, wish up. What?
Uh-oh, sounds like we lost Vinny there. I don't know where the hell he went, but apparently Vinny dropped out. I heard a little Skype beep. I imagine he'll call back in a second. or 3. I don't know. But in the meantime, how the hell y'all doing here on Real Liberty Media? Good to have you here with us today. I don't know who's all tuned into the stream, but good to have you here. Don't forget, later on this afternoon, this evening, it will be Grammy's Rocket Chair at 7 p.m. Eastern at our normal time. Here comes Vinny. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. That was Mama Bear rang into my phone, and I'm Skyping through it. So as it turns out, I had to answer that one. So she'll be calling here in 5 or 10 minutes. Grimmer will add her to air, and if it's not working out right and I can't hear her, then I'll just I'll drop the mic and let her take it over. And I'll go in and listen in to the.
Well, she can call in on the RLM number if that works out better.
Yeah, that's the number I gave.
Okay, the 866 number, I think it is, or I forget what the hell. 505 number.
Yeah, 505-832.
There you go. That sounds right.
Yes.
I don't even know my own freaking number. All right, continue.
Thank you. All right, we'll run this out a few more minutes. I doubt I even read any of these articles, but I'll get over and I'll cite the titles anyways. And I don't know if you can find it online. Tierra Grande, it's a magazine. It's a real estate magazine here in Texas. So this comes back down the line. Don Quixote says, I heard you verbally insulting him, talking about Huron suckling in front of the courthouse, and that my claims were false and as relevant and irrelevant as he recalls. Oh, shit. Facts matter. It's just Sparky has had enough. And facts matter, M-A-D-D-E-R, replying Don Quixote. And Sparkly, that is, has had enough like that reply. Yeah, there's Taylor McKinnon and Olympiad, or Ollie PhD, and Mandy M25. They like that. So tell us, Mike, are you trying to pay your $300,000? Oh, got choked on that. $300,000 in restitution for ripping off American taxpayers by slinging a book about Clive and Bundy ripping off American taxpayers. It's kind of funny. But if you are, that's rich. Or would be pretty funny. Taylor McKinnon, Don Quixote, like that. And so Don Quixote asked me, do I recall the content of my interlocution with Huron? Absolutely. And I responded a little bit later on to him there. Yeah, he outfoxed me as far as the art of counter protest. He did. And I realized what was happening at that point. He was there to cause provocation, and so I peeled off. And unfortunately, I was the one that led the charge into the Huron Suckling Center for Biological Diversity. Yeah, and a couple of people got loud, as I had done, and then I said, "Oh, he outsmarted me." Sure enough, but on facts, he did not. Let's talk about those facts. Yeah, they were PACs. In fact, non-governmental organization, the Center for Biological Diversity, head by Huron Suckling, Pigman. Yes, let's talk about those facts. Destruction of riparian habitat and crushing them underfoot. So that goes on to some conversation, a debate on how the hell is a cow going to hurt a turtle. It's Don Quixote called a tortoise a turtle, and I guess that's probably correct, because neither one of us is actually a field biologist. And my opinion about cows and turtles is irrelevant as to the issue of Cliven's bogus claims to public lands. It says he's stealing public resources for personal profit. How so? I want to know. Yeah, he says no. Cite my source, and don't say the discredited Bostock paper. That guy is a hack. If you're trying to persuade me that the tortoise shells can resist the weight of cows, you're failing. Bull. Yeah, maybe a bull, if he was snort raving mad, might hop up and down on him and crack him. But I'm going to tell you, generally, a cow, a bull, a steer, a heifer, even a calf, I don't reckon they're going to go around stepping on tortoise shells. And even if they did, it's going to slip right off. Do the experiment for yourself. I don't have to have any papers from, I've got paper, by God, and I've laminated it myself. To be an expert or to have some type of scientific experiment to discern that cows don't step on tortoises, first of all. If they do, it'd be very rare. And if they did, it's going to skid right off, guarantee. And then he goes on to say, barks at cats. And when I responded, I thought I was talking to Don Quixote, and says, depends on the weight of the cow and how the hoof contacts the shell. Yep. And my correction is incorrect to Don Quixote. It's irrelevant anyways. Let's move on to the subject at hand. Cliven had no claim to public land after he allowed his permit to lapse. Let me go see you. I bet you that's Grimner. Yeah, could hunt some jackrabbit. Can't watch videos. Now, somebody's got some videos going up over in the chat. If you're there, hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
Is Mama Bear.
You got Mama Bear? I can't hear.
Yeah, I got your Mama Bear on the phone here. Apparently, Vinny can't hear you, so he's gonna, I guess, mute up while you go ahead and do your thing.
Grimner, ask her to hold on for the next 4 minutes, and I'll round it out. And tell her I'll go listen to her on the radio here at reallibertymedia.com.
Talking. Vinny would like you to hold on for about 4 or 5 minutes here, and so if you can just hang on the phone, I'll let you know when he's done, and then you'll go for it.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead, Vinny.
Okay, and thanks, Grimmer, and let her know that since I can't hear her, I'm just going to hand her the mic and let her talk as long as she'd like to about this subject, which then I'll go listen on the player here. So let me wrap out here next 2 or 3 minutes. Barks at cats says missing key physics points. Glass is a dense solid. Because it's told to do an experiment. Take a glass or a plastic bowl and whack it. Whack it good and see what you can do. But it's still more rigid than sand. A brick archway stands because the bricks have surface resistance and helps them keeping from slipping. Well, enough weight will still cause it to fail. You're not convincing me. Then says that I've never worked cattle, have I? Well, wrong. Very, very wrong. Actually, very wrong. So, yeah, here's Don Quixote. Actually, I noticed biologist came out plural by accident because I said it should have been is instead of are, or vice versa. Anyways, moving right along. Don Quixote says no vested right to public land, period. He can lease through a permit. And so you don't understand the difference between public land and public domain and vested rights, vested interest, and pre-existing preemptive rights and ownership. And this is where the convolution comes, and the dispute that led to Cliven firing the Bureau of Land Management criminals at large in charge. So he has more than a few feral cattle running around out there. The majority are going to be at least 2 years old and have a weight closer to 800 pounds. Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about, barks at cats. I'm sorry. Nicest person as you are, that's not right. We could talk about the difference between the weight of a calf and a yearling and a steer and a heifer and a mama cow and pairs and bulls and on and on and on. But even you don't get 800 pounds of pressure when a cow steps on, if it were to step on a tortoise. Actually, it's not likely to slip off, says that, and we missed the point I was talking about their burrows. Well, the burrows, in fact, are on hillsides, and cows don't walk sideways. Little chance of damage to the burrow. Don't you, Otay. That's all the time with you. I think I've gone nearly. Oh no, I'm not. But
Your phone's breaking up there, Vinny.
I'm just driving. I wasn't saying anything.
No. It was Vinny's phone was breaking up. That's all.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to switch over to data.
Sorry.
What's that?
Well, I forgot to switch over to data. I forgot to switch to data instead of running on the this poor Wi-Fi. I wish I'd have thought of that earlier. But I'll finish up real quick. Cliven told me, he says, I asked him, I said, how do you know how many cows you got? He says that the BLM sends him every year and tell him how many cows he's got, since that's how they charge. So that'll wrap it out pretty much here. There's some more. Hello, Sheriff Sky Reef, the Sheriff Rancho 42. Hello, Blue, Sheep Tramp, Seymour Balls. And again, Don, okay. There's Katie Brunham and Taylor McKinney. Goblin Seaman. Yes, we've been having a little interaction. Won't say what all it is, but don't ask, don't tell. Well, let me wrap this here, and I'll just hang up right here, and I'll go on and take a listen over to rlmradio.xyz radio page there, and click on the player, follow along and chat. Let me hand the mic to Terry Lionel, Mama Bear, and I know her from about there in Buckerville, 2014, and again we met up in Vegas. So thank you, Gramner. I'll pass the mic.
All right, thanks, Vinny. And the floor is all yours there, Mama Bear.
Oh, the floor is all mine? So Vinny's not going to be on the phone with me?
No, he's got some kind of weird setup that, anyway, no, he's not. So I guess it was supposed to just be you talking on this?
Okay. Well, what I want to kind of do is go over some stuff. My background is I have a bachelor's in business and also a real estate license that's currently inactive. But there's basic laws on our land rights that we can go over, and some research that I did specifically on the Bundy Ranch.
All right.
Public record for the state of Nevada tells you who owns what properties, and it's all on a nice little map. So I mapped out. I'd gone to the Bundy Ranch standoff, and they had told me a couple things that I found very interesting as far as real estate. They said that all the other people around there, all the other ranchers, they'd all had to leave. They'd gotten tied up into legal battles, and whether they won the legal battle or they didn't win the legal battle, to pay for the lawyers and stuff, they lost their ranches. And so when I got home, I took a look at the property and the property lines, and all of them previously had water rights to the Virgin River. And when you look at the property lines now, their property lines only go up to the Virgin River, whereas the Bundys still go across the Virgin River, giving them the Virgin River water rights. And I found that was really interesting, because whether you win or lose in court, you're broke. And that's what they did to all the other ranchers. They just broke them.
Yeah.
They've also done it with other businesses that I can talk about later. But when I looked up the map and I looked upstream all the way into Mesquite, the Bundy Ranch is in Bunkerville, and I looked upstream, there was one other property that also went across the river. And that property was owned by Reed Family Trust.
Okay.
And I cannot guarantee you 100% if it's Harry Reid, but it happened to be on his first election year to the United States Senate that this property was bought.
Right.
And that meant that in January he would have been senator, sworn in as senator. So if you know where the terrain, it's a desert, sparse desert, and water in a desert is like gold. And the Virgin River flows year-round, and it flows into Lake Mead. Lake Mead is a major, major source for power, for water, and it's been going down over the years as population rises. And the state of Nevada really wants Lake Mead to keep it up high, and they want the Virgin River water rights. So that's what I found, and then I do believe that is Harry Reid's property, because when I put it out there, I put it out pretty much implying it was Harry Reid's property, and nobody ever corrected me. You know, and that's a pretty damning piece of evidence on Harry Reid. And yet, he never said a word. Sounds like his property to me. He could negotiate, he could negotiate a huge, huge deal with the water for state of Nevada by, say, I mean, then just think about it. If you own the water rights and you're the last man standing to those water rights and the state wants it, the state would have to pay fair wage. Well, fair wage would be probably, my guess, a percentage of all the electricity generated. That's massive. So that was my personal research that I did, and I know it's the solar and everything else, but I understood what the rights were about. And I also know that they were talking about, in the last court case, they were talking about the water rights physically on the BLM land, or the land of the state of Nevada. I don't think that I don't think there is a state of Nevada if the federal government owns 85% of it. I mean, I just have trouble saying that that's a state, but whose rights are whose? It kind of does everything. But what they have there, what the Bundys clearly have there, is an easement. Just like your telephone poles have an easement, there's a couple ways to create an easement. Say it's by the beach. You have a house by the beach, and people keep walking through your property to go to the beach. And you allow them to do it. That does not create an easement because you allow them to do it. If you go and post that they're not allowed to walk across your property, then, and they keep doing it, once they do it for 7 years, the public does it, or even a private person does it, that becomes their easement after 7 years. It's called adverse possession or preemptive land right. And it means that you just kept using it and ignoring them. But if once every 7 years you as the beach owner go and say, okay, well, I'm going to go and put a fence across here and I'm not going to let them come. All you have to do is do it once every 7 years and stop them from physically coming onto the property. You can't do it with a little sign. You have to physically stop them. It's one of the requirements to make sure that your land doesn't become an easement.
But, you know,
that's
you have to, excuse my ignorance on the whole matter, but could not the state of Nevada just claim eminent domain on the particular area on that part of the river?
I don't know. They could go at some point in time and say it's a public necessity, but even with eminent domain, they have to pay fair value on the property. That's in the Constitution.
No, right. I understand that, but they could say eminent domain, here's fair value. You no longer have the water rights at this part of the river here.
Yes, They could. They could. They have not done that because they don't want to pay that percentage probably of electricity generated by that water. Is my guess. It's probably a lot of money. Why else would they run off that many ranchers and spend millions of dollars trying to tie them into court and everything else on all the other cases? And the cases where the ranchers voluntarily said, fine, if you want it, you can have it, they paid them, from what the Bundy family told me, $2 million.
Big chunk.
Yeah, it's not a small chunk of change. So, yeah, that's a very valid point you had there.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with the situation other than what I've read in a few blogs and such, but that seemed to me like that would be the way for, if they really wanted to take that over, they could do it.
They could. They absolutely could, because it is for the best public welfare. Water in the desert, as I said. Why they're doing it the other way is because it's cheaper. There must be more money on the line. You just got to smell that there's more money. Why else would they do it heavy-handed like they're doing it?
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah. So on adverse possession, it's once every 7 years, and that was one of the first things when I read about the case before I went out to the ranch to the standoff. I got there like 2 days before it happened. One of the first things I asked was, have they ever stopped you from feeding your cattle? And since you stopped paying the grazing fees, and it's been 20 years. He said, no, not at all. Then if you look, there's another, the Attorney General, I read the Attorney General report that they had done. I don't know when that came out. It came out on, I think, the second trial. But it said that in the Attorney General report that they should have done something sooner.
Now, I seem to have a recollection that, didn't they corral up a bunch of his cattle at some point?
They corralled up, for the standoff they did, and that's what we did, was took the cattle back.
Okay.
They would have had to do it within 7 years. In this, for most states, I think state of Utah is 10 years. That's the longest one I've ever heard. But they would have had to physically stop them from taking care of their animals once every 7 years, and they did not do it. That's what I was looked into, and that's why I looked into specifically the water rights for the Virgin River, because I knew it flowed into Lake Mead, and so I kind of went on my own direction from the information that I was given. And it's pretty solid as far as real estate law goes. Preemptive land rights is a little bit easier to obtain than adverse possession. It only requires 4 of the 5 criteria. I can't name them off the top of my head, but it's still 4 of the 5, and they meet all 5 of the criteria to have adverse possession. So they weren't allowed, that's why they called it trespass cattle, because they weren't allowed to stop the Bundys from going on there. Yeah. And all the water, all the springs and stuff that they had and took care of across the area on the BLM land, they destroyed all that, even ended. And there's got to be a lot of money there, is my conclusion. Now, how long do I have?
You got plenty of time. Keep on.
Okay.
If you got more information.
On that, I don't have a lot. Excuse me, a lot more information. But the heavy-handed tactics have been used elsewhere. For example, Aries Armor here in San Diego. I live in San Diego.
Okay.
Aries Armor had up in somewhere like Sacramento or something, in the middle of the state somewhere. There was a court case going on where, because this is a gun shop that only sells cars, and a case went up in some other part of California, and Aries Armor asked a question, regarding the case. Apparently, is what happened. They called the ATF, said, "Hey, what's going on?" We're not allowed to help anyone drill out their lowers or what's, and they were told, no, you can't do that. Well, that put them on the radar by making the calls to clarify the rules. Apparently beforehand, everybody was doing that. A lot of people were helping, a lot of the gun parts places were helping with the drill out of the lowers on the ARs. So the ATF came and told Aries Armor that they want all their lowers and they want their customer list. Well, Aries Armor said, hold on, you can't have my customer list. And they said, well, we're going to get your customer list. And so Aries, the owner at the time was named Dimitri. And Dimitri hired a lawyer and got a restraining order against the ATF. Fine. And the ATF went and held a secret hearing without telling Dimitri's lawyer and got a search warrant for the lowers and the customer list. So they got the customer list just like they said they would. That's how heavy-handed they were.
Which is very typical.
Mm-hmm.
That's very typical of, regardless of the agency of the government, they come in and force their way to get whatever it is they want.
Yeah, they think they can just do it. And that's a huge, huge problem. You shouldn't violate people's rights to do what you want. In this secret court thing, I just stopped my car, so I'm going to be coming in the house. The secret court thing is insane. It is. He had a lawyer, he had a restraining order, and then the secret court comes in and says, well, you can do what you want anyways, ATF. Are you kidding me? That's the American way. But what happened was the same thing that happened to the ranchers. He had to bring in a partner to afford to pay the lawyer to deal with all that. They did end up winning protection against a protection for all their clients on their customer list. Now, if you know anything about California or Southern California specifically, most of us don't buy from places if we want to do something like that. If someone's making a run to the store and they've been there before, they'll go and pick stuff up for their friends and stuff. That's just very typical. So a lot of people that had gotten things from there weren't on their list, or they paid cash so they didn't have to register. That's how they tend to do that out here, just because we're in a silly area that thinks that we can't do anything for ourselves. In California, they try to tell us how to wipe our nose.
Yeah, I grew up in California, and it wasn't that way.
No, we got elected. We got Reagan elected. He was our governor. What happened?
Yeah.
So, but what ended up happening is Dimitri ended up losing Aries to the partner, which is also very common. As I said, those heavy-handed tactics, just tie them up in court and break them. And that's what they were trying to do, the Bundys. That's why they didn't go after any laws that would apply. They didn't fight it on adverse possession. They could have, you know. They didn't fight it in the civil courts. They did the criminal courts because they knew that civilly there was nothing they could do. Cliven has a right. His family has a right to the property. That's it. So instead, they gave the worst charges I've ever seen. Conspiracy? That's what you give to drug dealers.
Oh, they didn't like it because they were standing up to them in a manner that was very visible.
Yeah, that's how it has to happen, though. And they didn't like it because they wouldn't go to court. They couldn't break them in court. They kept trying to take them to court, and they wouldn't hire a lawyer and go to court. They responded, and that was it. And they didn't fight them. Because of that, they were last man standing because they didn't do everything the other ranchers did and lose their ranch. They just said no.
Yeah. Yep.
But when you have such a heavy-handed place as that, and I was also shocked that it was the HRT team, again, that we were dealing with. I didn't know that. I heard about it in Oregon, but until this case came along, I just can't.
What does HRT stand for?
Oh, you're going to love this name. Hostage Rescue Team.
Great.
I guess they were rescuing the cattle.
Or hostage cattle.
Yeah, no, that was apparently the team for what Ruby Ridge and Waco. Not necessarily the same people, but it's supposed to be the most elite team in the FBI, equal to SEAL Team 6.
Okay.
That's the mighty powerful force you're going up against.
It would seem to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know that they were involved until, things started coming out as the Bundy family was tried, because, of course, nothing came out on the first trial with, Eric Parker and all of them. Right. They weren't allowed to give. I couldn't believe that first trial. They weren't allowed to bring in any witnesses. None. 0 witnesses.
Hey, it's
and
their court, their rules.
Someone needs to get treason for that. That was treasonous. That wasn't even just their court, their rules. That's a king. And we already got rid of our king in, 1776?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, we got rid of our king. What are they talking about? So, yeah, those are the laws and the points that I think that Cliven has a good case on. That yes, if they want the water rights that bad, they can get it through, eminent domain. But there must be a lot of money involved for them to rather do all this BS. I just don't see any other way. Plus, for some reason, they think that the federal government thinks that they have unlimited funding and unlimited resources.
They do. If they want more, they just steal more from the people.
Yeah. Well, it's our government, it's our money, and it's our resources.
It's nice to think that way, but I mean, realistically, that's not how.
Realistically, that's what it is. Yeah. And it's the thinking. It's allowing other people to think of it that way. It's that thought process that's super dangerous in our society. For example, my husband, they weren't paying for his phone, and they were racking up our minutes and stuff like that. And when that job ended, he went to the labor board and got the company to pay for his cell phone and all of that. That was back when we had minutes, and a bunch of other, labor board type violations. And he walks in there and he shows them. But if you look at the labor board violations and what prompted those laws, they are actually anti-slavery laws. You cannot, use up everybody's resources. You can't. What's the song? You haul 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. Right. And you've got you owe your soul to the company store because it's the only place you're allowed to buy. And you have to work for the mine and buy from the company store that the mine owns. So there were anti-slavery laws that got put in place, and that's what our labor laws are all about. And I found them quite interesting as I researched that. So there's just so many different things, but it's the concept of he had another company that did something not the same. I said, well, did you ask them about this? And he goes, yeah, corporate said this. And I said, who's corporate? We're supposed to just bow because the word corporate is there, or the word Fed is there, or the government is there. Who's corporate? Who made the decision? Corporate is not anybody. And we do the same thing with the government. The government gets this. But they're fictional in our head to an unrealistic level. If we even looked at them as a person in our head, they wouldn't be allowed to do what they were doing.
Right.
But it's this mind thought, and you'll hear people say, well, corporate said this. This is how corporate wants it done. Who's corporate? Who made the decision? So I just find a lot of things really interesting on mindsets, but that's probably the most dangerous one I'm seeing out there right now, is we just bow to the word corporate, bow to the word, government.
Well, government's a corporation, so.
Well, it is, but it's a municipal corporation just based on a piece of land. It's not the same. I mean, that was what we had to learn in one of the first things we learned in business law.
Yeah. I need to step away for a moment, so just keep talking.
Oh, fun. But yeah, one of the first things we learned in business law was municipal corporation, because what happened was when banks were first formed, we said, okay, well, only people can get a checking account and write checks. Well, that's great. Now we got to have businesses that write checks. Okay, we got businesses to write checks. But how do we get a city to write a check? So we came up with what they call a municipal corporation. And that is just an area of land that the city governs. And that's the legal term to allow the city to be able to open a bank account and write a check and fix our road. Pay the poor construction worker. He's worked hard. Otherwise we're looking at not being able to do that if we remove the word municipal and say, oh, municipal corporations can't write checks anymore. Corporations can't write checks anymore. It has to be from a person. That would make it really hard for all of society. So it's just a plot of land that they're allowed to do business in and for, to fix our roads and, write checks for their employees and payroll and just everything that a city needs to do it. But they're not corporations as in a business, and this what do the Democrats call it? Corporate. What do the Democrats? Can you think of the word? Corporate personhood.
They're different than a business in the fact that they don't make any kind of profits. All they do is steal from what I guess we would be their customer. So they just steal the money from the people rather than worrying about being efficient in any manner.
Well, they're not supposed to make a profit.
No, but they should at least be efficient, right?
Yeah, you'd think so, till they tried to charge me $1,100 for a 4x4 post that my daughter ran into. $1,100. I'm like, but you paid $27 for the post. Took you, 2-3 men, a couple hours, and the $700 of it is overhead. I'm like, excuse me? Hey, why don't you just hire local people and get rid of all this overhead?
Right.
$700. So it was a $400 job. Supposedly, I could have done it for $27, but but it just makes no sense. The waste of money that the government is doing, trying to put in all these rules, is killing us.
Well, you heard about that. There was a park somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where it was. Anyway, they wanted to put the people that regulated the park wanted to put this little staircase in to go down this embankment. It was like 8 steps or something like that. And the city started working on estimates saying it was going to cost like $25,000 to do it. Some guy just went in there with a bunch of wood and built a staircase in a day. And it worked great, and it was safe, and they didn't like it. They had to tear it down. Because they didn't use what?
We did that up here in my town of Ramona. They had this bowl where a little waterfall in the winter would go down, and it's just this little swimming hole. Except you got to hike like 3 miles to get it. So they decided that it was something really special, and they spent $900,000 making a nice walkway all the way to it. Well, then people brought their dogs and were going out there with, ice chests and everything else. Before, it was like rough terrain. The only people that went that far were in pretty good shape. They were losing a dog a week because nobody thought to water their dogs on the hike. Then one of the cliffs to dive down, and you've only got 10, 15 feet of water, or 40 to 80 feet. So you've got to really be in good shape and know what you're doing to be diving down. Well, this kid slips off, and now you have to get a permit to even go down on that trail. I'm like $800,000, $900,000. Now you have to get a permit. Only so many people are allowed there at a time. Why do you leave it the way it was, where you couldn't have a bunch of people that couldn't make the 3-mile walk go? It's a no-cell area. They were having to, before they did the permit, they were having to go and take helicopters and go over the area to see if anyone needed help. All weekend long, they're bringing out helicopters, circling it to make sure everyone's okay. And it had never had any problems before they put in that trail. We just got to use some common sense, and this trying to help everybody be able to do everything. There is some Darwinism to life.
There should be.
There is. But yeah, I don't understand why they do what they do. They've used eminent domain here, down in Poway. They claim eminent domain to switch it and get the business they want in there. They want a name brand business because they'll make more money.
Yeah,
So they
that's not eminent domain. That's just thievery. Eminent domain. I mean,
that's
that's not a public good thing there.
yeah. The city of Poway has always been very heavy-handed, and they don't want this little gas station that's been there forever that still pumps your gas for you, which is like a luxury around here. And so they got rid of the gas station. They just kept after him, after him, after him, after him. Then another little gas station, they didn't like them, so they wanted a Walgreens in there. They wouldn't give them permits to upgrade the gas station to keep up with code. You know, they pulled every trick in the book to try to get rid of that gas station. Guess what's sitting there now? A Walgreens. Exactly what they wanted in their master plan. But we have to, as a community, just stand up and take that and say no, and that's what the Bundys did. They just said no, and that's all it takes. And if we do it where we see things going wrong and just keep saying no, but what we have to do is change the mindset. Government is the number one employee across the nation. We have to change the mindset of employees everywhere for self-responsibility and not this, I'm just doing my job because corporate said so.
Right.
There is no corporate personhood. I disagree with that one Supreme Court case, although I agree with some of it. I understand why they did it. The Supreme Court case that created the corporate personhood said, oh, money is free speech, which is a lie also. But what they did was they allowed our small businesses on Main Street to be able to support candidates. That had ended. Do you remember seeing that, like, on old shows? I mean, what, Mayberry type shows where they line the streets and the businesses show what candidate they support?
Yeah, it sounds familiar. You know, I don't see any problem with any business or whatever. It's whatever, because they know that, you know, one jackhole or another gets in, it's gonna, you know, support rules going their direction, or supposedly anyway. Whether that actually happens or not.
But what they had done is they passed laws saying that the businesses were no longer allowed to participate in politics. And that pushed all those businesses off of Main Street from being able to do signs, all those little family businesses. And the small businesses are the heart of America. They need to be able to put up their signs. But now that it's been 20 years and they finally got 25, they finally got their rights back to be able to put their little signs up, they're not sure what to do because they didn't have signs for so long. They don't know why they would put them up. They don't understand the importance of their voice. They say, oh, well, I might lose a customer. You also might gain one. But what's more important is that you'll have a stronger voice and you won't be overloaded with paperwork. Because right now they're being overloaded with paperwork to keep up with all these regulations that's on them. And the big corporations, they ignore the regulations because they just hire lawyers instead. But the little, small mom-and-pop shops, they're so busy trying to keep up with all the paperwork. It costs them so much, and they're hurting so bad. And I've been to small business meetings that are the same way. So, but back to Bundy Ranch. That's part of the reason why I went out there was to find out what really was going on. And when they say last man standing,
So
they are.
When you went out there as a private individual? You weren't part of that?
Yes.
It wasn't like an assignment?
No.
Okay.
No. I just went out there. I saw the video that Pete Santelli put out with the ant. I saw the one with Ammon being tased. And the day I saw that, I showed it to my husband. Came home from work. I showed it to him. He frowned really big as he's watching it. And I said, well, I'm going. And he goes, yep. And got in my car. Got a little bit of sleep that night. Woke up like 2, 3 in the morning. Got in my car and drove out there. See, my belief has always been safety in numbers. I had no idea that we were going to be getting the cattle back. I didn't know what was going to be happening. I just know safety in numbers, and we got to get out there, all hands on deck. As many people that can show up to protect that family is better. The family was standing up, obviously, and they needed, I mean, I was just there as one more person. Just add one more person, and you add, if enough people would just say, okay, well, we need one more person, I'm going to go. If enough people said that, we could change the whole country. But I hear people say, oh, if we show up with 10,000 people here, I'm like, no, just show up. You're just one person. We all lead ourselves. We're all our own leaders. We just stand up one person, and if enough people show, they show, and we get a good job done. And I can't say that I like the end results of what happened at the Bundy stuff, but I can say that that was the best results we could have gotten. They're alive.
What was the total size of the crowd that showed up in Bunkerville there?
Well, some paperwork that's been released during during the Bundy family trial, it said that there were 420 down below.
420, right?
420 down below. You're welcome to go on to my page and see how many were up above. I did 2 things because, as I said, in my mind, safety in numbers. So when we showed up there and got to the standoff area, and they said, put down your weapons and disperse. I've been to Tea Party and to Occupy, and the Democrats have, we all know they're very passionate protesters. And so I've learned a little bit from I've only been to a couple of those, but I learned enough, and I saw their passion and how they think. So I just started chanting, you disperse, and everyone joined in. And then they gave another command, and I started the second chant, and after that I never had to do a chant again, because then the people start saying, hey, no, we're standing up. You leave. We're not leaving. You leave. And I had originally thought it was about, my guess when I was there, about 1 out of 10 people were armed. And when I saw that piece of paper, it was the one that had the pictures of the unsubs. I don't know how many people got it, because I only got it through a Facebook Messenger. I don't know that I ever saw it.
Unsub? Is that what you said?
Yeah, unsub.
What's that?
It's a list of the unknown subjects.
Oh.
The people that were armed. Apparently, best I can guess, because I'm unsub number, I think, 75. Best I can guess is the plane, the Cessna that was way up above circling, was also taking pictures and trying to identify who had what, because it looked to be not a side view, but somewhere from the air. And it's a little grainy, and you can see me, and I have my little pink pistol. It's black and white. You can't tell it's pink there, though. And you look down, so I'm thinking it was that Cessna that was taking photographs. And then on that list, they have the unsubs, and then they, I guess, identified a few of them because there are a few names mixed in there. But it took the list of the person unsub with the weapon, and it did it at different times throughout the day. It is how the chart was broken up.
Yeah.
And as I said, I didn't know any of this until during or after the trials is when I found this one. A friend of mine texted it to me. He goes, "Hey, check out number 75. I looked and I'm like, oh my goodness. But so it ended up being, I think it was around 45 rifles, which would be about 1 out of 10, which was what my guess was. What I didn't count was the people with handguns like me. So I guess we were closer to a higher percentage than I thought. But honestly, you can't do jack with a handgun in that situation. So
that's better than nothing.
It was just, yeah. So, but I was surprised to see myself on there. I was surprised to see how the angle was. Technology, I can say I'm pretty impressed. It was black and white, but it was it was a little grainy, but considering how far away that Cessna was.
Vinny says he was under the bridge and he couldn't be seen from above.
Possibly. Realize it was hot. It was hot out that day. You're 90 degrees standing out in the sun. Yeah. A lot of people were under the bridge. But I just wanted to share with y'all kind of the Patriot perspective and what my research was on this stuff. How I see it on the ranch. The ranch was amazing. It taught me so much about how to just simply stand. You just say no and you stand. You don't think about your what ifs. You don't let your mind go into all kinds of directions. You just simply stand. And you just stand for the truth, and everything will work out. We've got a few more in jail to get out from that one situation, but if you look, I was guessing there was 400 to 500 for dinner that night. Normally for dinner there was around 200, 250 was my guess before. But that night, we had a lot more people. I think the people from in town that were supportive. When I walked around in town before everything happened, I would talk to, the person at the Walmart, the person at the gas station, the person at McDonald's. They were all supportive. I only ran across one person that wasn't supportive out of everyone I talked to. They had the support of the town. Yeah. And the town people would have come out, would have done it. We probably at least doubled their numbers. But, by traveling out of state like I did. But they cannot fight them on actual land rights laws. Right. I know Cliven likes to argue, previous laws and that it's not federal, and it which is an argument, but even on current laws, they can't fight it. The government loses.
They should.
And they should.
Yeah. Hey, Vinny says thanks, and he'll Skype in the last 5 minutes to close. So if you got something, you
Okay.
got like 3 or 4 minutes to wrap up with.
Yeah, I'd like to see people stand up again. We have to kind of win this election coming up. We do need to stand up, but what we need to do is stop being afraid. Everywhere I went, I would say, well, come out and join us. And they're go like, oh, no, I have a family. Isn't that more of a reason to join us? So I guess I'll leave it on that.
All right. Well, it's been great having you on here and getting the information and hearing your stories. And,
Yeah.
By the way, I don't think I ever formally introduced myself. I'm Grimner. I run the Real Liberty Media site.
Ah, okay.
And
Okay, well, they call me Mama Bear, and I'm a bit of a Mama Bear. I've learned some hard lessons about when to lead with my heart and when not to, and yeah, it's been a long road, but I just want to see everyone just stand up and not be afraid anymore. There's nothing to be afraid of.
there is not.
It's more in our mind, like that corporation thing is in our mind. Thinking that they're going to spy on us and stuff like that. Yeah.
They are going to spy on
They
you.
might.
Not only are they going to, they're already spying on you.
Oh, yeah. Every time I announce I'm going to a national event, I get helicopters over my house twice a day, up until I switched to this phone. I think they can track me better on this phone. But that's all they did. I'm still standing.
Yeah.
All my friends that have been in the movement this long are still standing. Just being afraid, being worried that you're going to be watched, doing all of that, all it does is hurt your children and your grandchildren.
Sure.
And there's only, a handful of people in jail from their cases got messed up or they pled out. And they can get overturned.
Boogaloo.
Hang on.
Out of probably 1,000 people that were there.
Where
Once
am I?
you look at the bridges on both sides. So, yeah. Stand up.
All right.
Well, God bless you, and say goodbye to Vinny.
I will. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. All right, Vinny. Mama Bear says goodbye.
Thanks, Mama Bear. That was a very, very good broadcast. I appreciate you.
Hello? Hello? We lose you? Did you mute? Vincent. Where'd you go? All right. I don't know where the hell he went, but he was talking, and then he disappeared. You know how Vinny is. He's a tricky one. So hopefully he'll figure out whatever the hell's going on there and get on back here to close out his program. By the way, this is Vince's program. Ain't mine. And this is called A Ponder Gander with Vinny. Oh, I see. Now the call dropped. So Vinny must have, I don't know what the hell he did. But he did something. Anyway, we'll wait for him to call back. While we're waiting, let me tell you about what's going on later on. Oh, here he is. All right.
My bad. I switched over to data real quick. I should have done that.
All right, well, let me finish my comment that I was making while you were off. Later on this evening, is Grammy in her rocket chair at 7 p.m. Eastern. The Freakers Ball will be on with myself and the Mighty Moose Girl at 11 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow at noon Eastern is the Dork Table with those dorks, Flash and Grammy. I'll be on again on Sunday morning playing the blues here for you for 3 hours, and trivia here in the chat, by the way. Leading on up into Hal Anthony behind the woodshed, opening up a big old can of whoop ass. And then at 7 p.m. Eastern Sunday night is Gary L. and Gigi's Boo. going down the road less traveled.
We
All right,
hope.
man.
It is a rocky road too. And,
it is a very
sometimes
rocky road.
It's pretty long sometimes, and like a long hot summer day. Well, thanks, Grimner. I appreciate you stepping in there and taking over. Now, next week we got Mike Stickler, the author, and he's going to be on. He'll be Skyping in, so we'll be able to actually have a conversation.
Now, who's Mike Stickler?
He wrote the book Cliven Bundy, American Terrorist or American Patriot. So that's the contention. He was in prison with Cliven in Pahrump, Nevada, for 6 months, and he got the story firsthand. So it's an authorized biography. I saw Cliven's book, his copy there at his house, and I noticed there was he had some sticky notes and highlighted some things there. There's a few mistakes there, but nothing major. I mean, as far as the number of water holes and this and that and the amount of cattle. But anyways, I don't have those marked in my book, but and I'm not sure how much. Cliven hadn't finished the book, and so I'm not sure that he's conversed with Mike since then. But I'll have some notes, and we're going to talk about his book, and we're going to talk more about the Bundy Ranch situation, and me being number 303 of NE on the witness list. I was armed with my phone, my voice, and my feet there, so don't think I was ever an unindicted co-conspirator, and I don't believe I've ever said any words that I could ever be held for criminally. But I, like Mama Bear, think it's important to stand. I'd do it all again, and as I said in an earlier post, there was plenty of idiots out there, and on both sides of the so-called line there, the line that was drawn in the sand, and the standoff was from the federal agencies there involved, and not the American people. And Mama Bear made a couple of misstatements as far as that right there. We didn't force them to release the cattle. Sheriff Gillespie said, as I recorded him saying so on the stage, that he received a call that the cattle were being released on his way out there. He also, from the conversation from the day before, which is part of my testimony that I would have given in court, Cliven Bundy, had a meeting with Sheriff Gillespie then, and it was all supposed to have been a stand down at that point, but Dan P. Love, the special agent in charge, who's since been fired from the Bureau of Land Management, he told everybody to shelter in place, and they went from being the aggressor to the victim at that point in time, according to some testimony on stand that I was in the courtroom in Las Vegas. But anyways, thanks again, everybody, for listening, and I appreciate you joining in chat. Next week, come on along, and let's hear the rest of the story from Mike Stickler. Thanks again, Graham. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Vinny, and we'll see you there in the chat.
Peace, brother.
Peace.